All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful documents you've probably heard of, but maybe don't know the whole story behind. It's not a law, it's not a treaty, but it absolutely changed the game for humanity. This is the story of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
So I want you to picture it. The year is 1945. The Second World War, the deadliest conflict in history, is finally over. And in its wake, the world is grappling with the absolute horror of the Holocaust. The planet was quite literally shattered. So the question on everyone's mind was, well, what do you do now? After all that devastation, how do you even begin to build a future based on peace and human dignity?
Well, the answer started with a global promise that atrocities like that could never, ever happen again. But, this wasn't about rebuilding bridges and buildings. It was about something much, much deeper. It was about rebuilding our collective conscience, forging a shared idea of what it even means to be human. The brand new United Nations knew it had to step up. Its whole charter was about protecting human rights, but there was a massive problem. Nobody had actually agreed on what human rights even were. What the world needed was something totally new, something radical, a single, clear, universal standard, one that would apply to every single person on Earth, no matter who they were or where they came from. And so the work began. In 1946, this incredible, diverse committee got down to business, and it was chaired by the absolute force of nature that was Eleanor Roosevelt. And for 2 years, they debated, they argued, they collaborated, and then finally, on December 10th, 1948, it happened. The UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. What a moment. So this document, it becomes the world's blueprint. But you have to understand, it's so much more than just a list of rules. It was a completely new way of looking at ourselves and each other. And here it is. This is the core idea. And you can't overstate how revolutionary this was at the time. See, before this, rights were usually seen as things that a king or a government gave to you, privileges. The Declaration completely flipped that script. It said, nope, your rights are inherent. You are born with them. They aren't a gift, and no one has the power to take them away. So what is it exactly? Well, the UDHR, as it's called, is this foundational document, and it lays out 30 articles, 30 basic fundamental rights that belong to every single one of us. Why? Simply because we're human. That's it. From the right to life all the way to the right to education. And the way it's structured is it's brilliant. It kicks off with the preamble, which is like the philosophical heart of the whole thing. Then you get into our civil and political rights, things like freedom from slavery and the right to a fair trial. After that, it moves on to economic and social rights, like the right to have a job and get an education. And then it wraps up by talking about our duties to each other, to create a world where these rights can actually be real for everyone. Okay, but here's the twist. And it's a big one. For all its incredible moral power, the UDHR isn't actually a law. So how in the world did a document with no legal teeth manage to change everything? This is where the real genius of the whole thing comes in. See, by making it a declaration and not a legally binding treaty, its creators did something clever. They skipped what would have been years of political fighting. The goal wasn't to force countries to sign a law. It was to set a moral North Star for the entire planet. Think of it like the source code for human rights. It's the fundamental logic that all the actual laws and treaties would be built on later. And the impact? It's just staggering. Over 60 international human rights treaties, we're talking actual binding laws, can trace their DNA right back to the ideas in the UDHR. It started this incredible ripple effect that is still shaping our world. And its influence just exploded way beyond treaties. Its principles got woven into the constitutions of so many countries. It gave moral firepower to the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. It helped fuel the civil rights movement right here in the US. And today, groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch use it as their yardstick to hold governments accountable. But of course, nothing is perfect. And to really understand the UDHR, we have to be honest about its flaws and its critics, because seeing those complexities is the only way to understand why it's still so incredibly relevant today. So what are the big criticisms? Well, some argue it has a Western bias, that it focuses heavily on individual rights over, say, community rights. And of course, there's the big one we've already talked about. It's not legally binding. Its power really depends on whether countries choose to live up to it. There's no global police force making sure they do.
And yet, despite all that, here we are, still talking about it. Why? Because people treat it as a living document. Its core ideas, dignity, equality, freedom, they're so fundamental that we can constantly reinterpret them and apply them to challenges the original writers couldn't have even dreamed of.
And you see this happening right now, today. When we're debating the ethics of AI, or our right to privacy online, when we talk about environmental justice, or the rights of refugees and the LGBTQ+ community, guess what framework we're using? It all comes back to the ideas born in 1948. The UDHR is still guiding our most important conversations.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last massive question. The world today is not the world of 1948, not even close. So as our technology, our climate, and our societies keep changing at this incredible speed, how do we make sure our understanding of these universal rights changes too? That, right there, is the ongoing challenge and the enduring legacy of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.